Alright guys, with the season finale of Hard Knocks featuring the Detroit Lions airing last night, we got to see what we already knew, who was cut, who made the roster, and who was going to be pushed to the practice squad. We got some interesting storylines that they played up, but then we will be giving our overall grade for the Detroit Lions finally being on Hard Knocks. What I thought was cool, where I thought they could have excelled and maybe picked up a storyline or two, and basically I'll give it a grade on a scale of 1 to 10. So this video is going to be pretty greasy and easy, just like your mom. Roll the intro. Welcome to Detroit! Hey guys, thanks for dropping into the channel. I appreciate it. If you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe and smack like on your way out the door. Now that that's out of the way, you guys already know the drill. I'm your host, Hat and Beard. I run the show around here. So a day late and a dollar short for those of us that have been following the cuts that came from the 53-man roster last week by 4 p.m. on Tuesday. We already knew, Blau and Boyle and Obina Eze and Dan Skipper and Jared Davis. And the majority of the players that you've seen get cut on Hard Knocks ended up being signed back to the Lions practice squad. I said yesterday, even Tim Boyle was re-signed to the Lions practice squad. We did not bring back Godwin Iwebuike. Khalil Pimpleton ended up signing in New York on their practice squad. David Blau's in Minnesota on their practice squad. Most people, I guess, found that out on Hard Knocks. Those of us that are in the know, we already knew about that kind of, last week. This week was all about cuts and all about moving forward and wrapping everything up with a nice bow. My feelings on the full season was, as a Lions fan, as a hardcore Detroit fan, I was a little let down, to be honest. The first episode was a lot of fun just because it was finally happening for us. And then, episode 2 was a big letdown. That was the one where it showed a lot of Aiden Hutchinson's family at the beginning. It was the episode that showed him in their first preseason action. Episode 3 was okay. Episode 4 was better. Episode 5 was nothing we haven't seen before in Hard Knocks. It showed a little bit more depth to Dan Campbell than I thought most people didn't expect. At the very end there where he just kind of mulled over the question about what the Lions are going to be this year. As funny as I thought it was to see him just sit there and can and will. I thought it was cool to see the depth of him clearly trying to put the right words out there. 2 minutes of it, you're like, oh, maybe Dan Campbell froze. Maybe you need to reboot him there. But those are all normal things that we're used to seeing in Hard Knocks. What me as a fan didn't expect was that, you want to know every dirty little detail about the team, which is why you're here watching like this kind of channel. And after the first 2 episodes, I started to realize that this isn't a show for me. This is a show for everyone else. This isn't meant for the football phenom. It's a nice little fix. It's not what I'm looking for. It's not the dirty ins and outs. It's not the gritty little details, man. It's entertainment for the American people, which is what HBO does, is they sell entertainment to the American people. So I get that. I just wanted to see more. Namely, the 2 things that I really wanted to see were 2 major storylines that I thought that Hard Knocks kind of dropped the ball on. And you've been hearing me talk about Jeff Okudah all offseason. But they really missed a huge opportunity to discuss Jeff Okudah's, he's right here on this line of being a bust and being a baller. And they could have talked about that storyline, him being the number 3 overall pick a couple years ago, being still connected and tied to the Matt Patricia dark ages there, because he was, one of their first picks, and he was the number 3 overall pick under Quinn Tricia. And it would be cool if they would have showcased a little bit of that, maybe talked about Jeff Okudah a little bit more, the struggles he's had, because, last season, you can't control what injuries you're going to get, man. How did he know his Achilles was going to pop like a rubber band, dude? They missed an opportunity showing Jeff Okudah, and then they missed another huge opportunity. Now, granted, maybe the coaching staff, because he's on the PUP list, just didn't want the distraction. They wanted to, maybe the front office was able to negotiate with HBO, was able to negotiate with HBO about, who was going to get a lot of camera time, who's going to be mic'd up, but I wanted to see some JMO storyline. I wanted to see some JMO storyline, some discussion about how he was the number 1 wide receiver in the draft, how he has the highest ceiling, how he's trying to come back from his knee injury, how he's put in this position, how the Lions traded up to get him, how coming to a changing organization in the midst of a culture shift, top-down changeover, how he's, you know, not this year, but next year, we're going to put a lot of weight on them Jameson Williams' shoulders, and can he hold it? Can he sustain it? Who is J-Mo? We wanted to see a little bit more of this guy behind the scenes because, you know, he was a first-round pick. You know, yeah, we took him at 12, but we traded up 20 spots to get him. So clearly Brad Holmes likes the guy, thinks there's something special with him. Now, there was a run on wide receivers right then. So maybe they just felt the need that they needed to get out there and grab him. I mean, I guess you could argue that maybe George Pickens would have fallen to the second round. I wanted to see more J-Mo. I wanted to see more Jeff Okudah. I'm not too worried about not seeing, you know, Jared Goff. He's been on it twice. But it just, those two players in particular, maybe even some Tracy Walker, who signed a larger contract to come back and play, you know, an extension to play in Detroit. That would have been cool. I'm just glad that in the end, ultimately HBO, you know, the Lions finally decided to play ball, and HBO put us on Hard Knocks, and it wasn't like last year where we came out and fell on our. I'm glad they came this year, not last year. I don't know, man. I was hoping for more, and now that I know, you know, what stories aren't being talked about, what information is out there that HBO isn't picking up, I'm going to be a little jaded. I'll still watch it next year, and I'll do the same thing I do every year, where I fall in love with the Hard Knocks team, and I get way too hyped about X player who is ultimately a roster bubble player. I'm looking at you, Thumb Kennedy. All in all, I enjoyed this season of Hard Knocks. I was expecting to come out here on a scale of 1 to 10, give it a friggin' 12. That's what I wanted. When I first heard that the Lions were going to be on Hard Knocks, I thought, man, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. I can't wait to see my team, you know, out there on the national spotlight, getting all the love, because I know how Hard Knocks packages everything. I wanted to come out here and give it a 12. I can't, because as I stated before, some of the episodes were just dull and boring. Maybe it's because we don't have a lot of personalities on the team. I mean, we do have personalities, but not loud, big personalities. Hat and Boob summed it up pretty good. We got a team full of dorks, and that's awesome. I love having a team full of dorks. That you know, a team full of dorks, at least I can coach dorks, right? Like, at least we know what we're getting with dorks. They ain't hiding nothing on the side, you know? I would have to give this season overall a 7 out of 10. I would have to give this a 7 out of 10, 70%, you know, not great, not terrible. Lacking in some stories that I wanted to see, lacking in some other aspects. Again, it was really cool to see the coaching staff. We clearly have a bunch of characters on staff. It's awesome. If we're successful, if the Lions are successful with the Dan Campbell style of coaching and building the coaching staff with ex-players, if this is successful, this will be the next, I think, wave of coaching maneuvers that washes through the league and people try and emulate, because this is a league of parity. And obviously right now we're in the youth movement. The Shane McVays, the Zach Taylors, they were the coaches of the Super Bowl last year. But we're seeing this youth movement of coaches, and Dan Campbell's not old, not young. He's like 47. You know, he's a veteran. All of our players are veterans. So this is a slightly different maneuver than what the status quo has been. So if this is successful, expect to see more teams emulate this and copy us. Ultimately, I'm glad that Hard Knocks is over, because I'm tired of waking up on Wednesday mornings and trying to shoot and edit these videos and get them out, you know, for you savages to consume. But this will be it for the Hard Knocks videos this year. I got more videos coming out this week breaking down the offense and the defensive final 53-man roster before we dive into it on opening weekend this week, guys. So it's finally here. We're just barreling down on football time. I feel like a kid getting ready to leave for Christmas break in elementary school. So that's gonna do it for me, guys. I've been Hat and Beard. You've been a great audience. We'll catch you in the next one. Later.
Mr. Sims doesn't want it. He doesn't need to be labeled still worthy of being a Beard man.